It sounds like, based on what our reporting, this was telegraphed and designed to avoid casualties. Why would
Yeah.
Iran do that? Why would Iran telegraph and design a military attack to avoid casualties?
Well, for along the lines of what I said, they have to appease their people. Their whole premise of governance has been on the military front and the geopolitical front. We're going to stand up to the big Satan and the little Satan. And people in Iran know that the United States and Israel both have now attacked the Iranian assets. And I think, again, they've done this at least twice now, where they don't want to bring the full measure of the United States force upon them. But they need to tell their people they've done something, and they can tell the Iranian people they did respond, and they can exaggerate the degree of success and the tit for tat nature of the response. And that's what many people think they'll do. And this could be a sign of that. But this is not a closed thing. It's not like they get one chance to respond. They may respond that way and then respond a different way. Charlie, I think the biggest variable in all of this is the Iranian people and what the government feels they need to do to appease them or keep them from demanding a change in government or have a perception that they're a failed regime. And we don't know most of the reporting out of Iran, and I'm unfortunately not in a position to do much reporting there directly, but most of the reporting suggests that they're rallying around the government. They're reacting negatively to Israel and the United States. And that's good for the government because that means they've got more leeway in how they respond without having to worry about losing face with their own people.
Okay, 6 missiles launched so far by Iran right now as we're here on air towards Qatar. I'm told many have been intercepted. There are multiple explosions over Doha, and those interceptions are ongoing right now. So it's conceivable that Iran kind of, hey, it's coming, and they didn't quite want to kill Americans, but they wanted to show face domestically. And they said,
Correct.
hey, we did this thing, it's over. And I mean, I could see it if these missiles are successfully intercepted and no U.S. troops die. What does your reporting show, Mark, about how President Trump would respond? Do you think he will take an off-ramp and then kind of just put this thing, consider it done, if no U.S. troops die?
In the short term, I do think that's what the president would do if it's just some buildings hit. However, there's an ongoing issue, right? The president, to the extent, and again, you've taken heat, as you said, both called an isolationist and called a warmonger. The president is committed to not letting Iran develop a nuclear capability or intercontinental ballistic capability. The Israelis seem to be on this, and they continue to not only hit our targets in Iran, but with a great deal of confidence. But if there's another element of the mission, like we saw over the weekend, where the United States capability can get it done and Israel can't, they don't have the B-2s and the bunker busters, then I think the president would go back for more. But I think the goal is to say, deter Iran from striking American forces around the world, deter them from hitting American forces in the United States, and hope that Israel can do what both the United States and Israel say they want, which is to eliminate that missile capability and that nuclear capability.
We're getting some of the video now that we're going to put up. Sorry, Mark, this is all just breaking news in real time here.
I'm a breaking news guy, fella.
No, I know. So, and by the way, feel free to check your phone, Mark, if you're getting sources and you're getting information too live on air. The skies of Qatar are lighting up right now as interceptions seem to be occurring, and we're going to try to load up those videos. Mark, what does this say for the MAGA doctrine, for the Trump doctrine, if there is an off-ramp? President Trump has kind of created a third way. We've kind of always existed in, hey, either you're a dove or you're a hawk. President Trump has always existed kind of in between those two modalities. Yeah. What does this mean for the Trump doctrine and the Trump foreign policy worldview?
Speak loudly, carry a big stick, use it when necessary, and no boots on the ground. I find people who are surprised by how President Trump is handling this to be guilty of not paying attention. He's doing exactly what he said he would do. People say, well, this is a slippery slope. No, he's not going to put boots on the ground. They're not going to be American forces on the ground. There's going to be no nation building. There's going to be no attempt to win the hearts and minds of the Iranian people. There'll be a lot of rhetoric about how the Iranian people, as the president put on Truth Social yesterday, how the Iranian people should consider changing their government because their government has not performed in their best interest. I think you'll continue to see that. And I think you'll continue to see overwhelming force used to take out whatever needs to be taken out to make sure that Iran cannot be a nuclear power. Other than that, I think it's up to the Iranian government. If they kill an American, one single American, then I think you'll see massive retaliation. And the president made that clear to them. That doesn't mean boots on the ground. We've got extraordinary air power. The Israelis have helped clear the way by making the Iranian Air Force and anti-air capacity quite limited. And so I think the president, as he said over the weekend, and the experts I talked to concur, the mission that was carried out over the weekend is the tough one. The ability of the United States to destroy government buildings, political things, bases, the Navy, that's fish in a barrel for the U.S. military.
All right, we have some visuals. I just want to put this up on screen of some of the interceptions that are happening over Qatar. Now, remember, this is very ballsy for Iran to do because Qatar and Iran, I don't want to say they're allies, but there's definitely something that's been going on there with oil, and they're closer than Saudi Arabia and Iran. So this is quite a maneuver for Iran to do. But look at that, those interceptions happening over the skies of Qatar right now. That is real stuff. I mean, those ballistic missiles could take out hundreds of people if it hits a certain target. And so, Mark, stay right there. I want to tell our audience about one of our sponsors and then our partners. We're going to go straight to the break. Go to donewithdebt.com. Done with Debt is great. If you guys are in debt right now, I encourage you guys to go to Done with Debt. Wasn't supposed to get as bad as it is. I know a lot of you guys in debt are looking to get out of it. It's called Done with Debt, and they're not like other debt relief companies. They don't push loans or bankruptcy on you. Done with Debt are legendary negotiators who go head-to-head with your credit card loan companies. They have one goal: to drastically reduce or eliminate your debt altogether. And unlike those others, Done with Debt moves lightning fast. Most clients see more money in their pocket month one, but a word to the wise: hurry, because some of their brilliant debt erasing strategies are time sensitive. Visit donewithdebt.com. That is donewithdebt.com. So check it out right now, donewithdebt.com. Make sure that you do not have another bill payment until you talk to a Done with Debt strategist. Go to donewithdebt.com. That is donewithdebt.com. Email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. Visuals are coming in. We do not yet have any confirmation of a missile hitting a U.S. base yet, but there are more missiles being launched right now. Stay right there. Mark Halperin continues after the break. Okay, Mark Halperin continues with us. Mark, right now, looks like initial reports show that all missiles were intercepted so far. We need triple confirmation on that. I don't know what your reporting is showing as well. But that could be another victory for President Trump to show the capacity for the U.S. military to intercept these missiles. There's also alarms that are ringing in Iraq and Bahrain. And the source of the interception is probably aerial interception and also Patriot missiles from the bases. Again, we need triple confirmation on that. So, Mark, really quick, what do you make of the politics of all of this and kind of the response that you've seen from MAGA faithful over the last couple of days? You're very uniquely positioned as a reporter to comment on this. As we get more information about this aerial attack against U.S. bases, what do you make of the politics of all this?
Well, on the Republican side, I think the stories about, MAGA meltdown are exaggerated. There's a few people like Marjorie Taylor Greene who are on principle opposed to this. I hear it on two-way from MAGA folks who say this is a violation of what the president has stood for. But most people, and I put you and Professor Bannon in this category, I think have participated in the debate in a responsible way. And most members of Republicans in Congress saying, let's make sure that this is done consistent, not with just American principles, but consistent with the principles learned over the last several decades, maybe from Vietnam onward, saying America cannot win these wars and America shouldn't get into wars that they can't win. But at the same time, using air power and superiority to achieve a specific objective, one that the president has talked about for such a long time, making sure they're not a nuclear power, is a big one. I think the Democratic Party, perhaps not surprisingly, is just a mess on this. There's 17 different positions. I've yet to hear any Democrat enunciate what seems to be the obvious position, which is support our troops, demand that the Iranian government not have nuclear capability or intercontinental ballistic missiles, and say that the president's obligated to work with Congress whenever he's going to put American forces in harm's way. That's like the easy, sensible position that's patriotic and rational and doesn't give Donald Trump everything he wants. And yet, like I said, I've heard almost no Democrat talk about it. I'll be super curious to see if the president's poll numbers go up, because normally that would happen.
Oh, I think they will. Just really quick, looks like there's more ballistic missiles right now launched at Bahrain. So it looks as if they're going after multiple targets. Based on reporting happening real time here on the program, it looks like the Qatar missile strikes were intercepted, and all 6 headed to Doha were neutralized, intercepted. Huge victory for the U.S. military and for the Saudis and the Qataris and the British. So basically, again, it's a very layman understanding, but basically we fly a bunch of fighter jets and we try to send out a bunch of flares and disruptors that try to make the missiles explode in air. There are sirens right now in Kuwait, so we are not out of the woods yet. Bahrain and Kuwait and Iraq are probably the next 3 targets right here on the program, as Iran looks to retaliate from the U.S. bombing on nuclear sites. Stay right there. Welcome back, everybody. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. Mark Halperin is with us. Okay, alarms are ringing right now in Kuwait. They are ringing in Bahrain. So eyes are now on those 2 countries. Can we put up a Middle Eastern map, please? So Qatar is the juiciest of all the targets. It's the largest U.S. base. It's in a desert, and it's the closest proximity. I think Bahrain actually might be a little bit closer. But we also have Blake here who's going to help with this. So
you got to
go ahead, Mark.
You got to worry about Iraq, too, because there's a history there of not through the air, but just human assets on the ground who have the capacity to attack American forces. Those bases, of course, over years now have been fortified and they're pretty well secured, but you never know if this is a desperate time for the Iranians when they may start to activate long-held assets who are in a position to do harm to America. The air defenses, as Israel has shown in this part of the world, are very good. Israel shoots down a very high percentage of attacks on them from all quarters. And you mentioned the list of countries for whom this is a victory. I know you didn't do it on purpose, but just to live rattle, Israel, a big part of this as well in terms of intelligence sharing, in terms of technology. So
Mark, right now, again, reports are showing French, British, and American fighter jets are all over the Persian Gulf, just kind of going nuts. I want you to remind the audience, though, when we took out Soleimani, we were able to get out with 0 U.S. troops. So this would not be unprecedented where we do something with a lot of chutzpah, or we do something where President Trump really acts with decisiveness, with violence, but then we're able to get out without a single U.S. troop dead. To do that twice, Mark, would be a rather phenomenal accomplishment in the modern era. Mark Halperin.
Well, it has to do with the extraordinary capabilities of the Pentagon, right? They're following the orders of the Commander-in-Chief, the Secretary of Defense, and the President puts a premium on that. He doesn't want a single casualty, but it also has to do with his attitude. His attitude is, again, speak loudly, carry a big stick, only use it when absolutely essential, and he doesn't want Americans to die. This continues to be the less failure to understand Donald Trump when they call him a warmonger. He's the opposite of that. He's extremely aware of the cost, not just for American families, but for American prestige and the military's capacity for when America suffers casualties. And that's why, again, people who worry about him saying, well, we're going to go in and start building firehouses and parks and schools in Iran, it's not going to happen.
Final thoughts here, Mark. And Mark, by the way, you're welcome to hang with us as we kind of do breaking news. We're just going to roll through this, but I know you have a busy schedule. It sounds as if, and we need to get this verified. There's explosions at the Al-Assad air base in Iraq. That does not mean that anybody necessarily died. There were explosions at these bases back in 2020. It does not mean that any U.S. troops died. 10 missiles were launched targeting U.S. bases in Qatar. I think that those U.S. bases, that was a successful interception. The Iraqi one is an open question. As you astutely mentioned, Mark, the Iraq one is very close geographically. There's a ton of Iraqi bases. In some ways, they were kind of sitting ducks. So it sounds like there might be a successful missile launch, successful in the worst possible way to say those words, on a U.S. base in Iraq. Also, sirens at U.S. bases in Saudi Arabia. This looks like they're doing a major volley here, Mark.
Yeah. And look, this is one of the many things that people worried about, people who did not think the U.S. attack on the nuclear program was a good idea, for worried about just this. And now there's going to be a question of how long do they keep it up? Do they kill any Americans? And if they do, what is President Trump's response? There's also a possibility, of course, of communication, and to say to the Iranians, okay, you got your measure of revenge. Now let's negotiate, or we will reply in greater force. That will, I predict, be what the president does. I think he will make one more effort to get them to the table. And if they don't come promptly to the table in a realistic way, I think you will see, as he suggested over the weekend, overwhelming force. And that's if a single American dies.
And Mark, just to repeat a point that we've made over the last couple of weeks, and this is not in any way, and I told you so, this was just a cautionary element. When we get into these situations, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't. No one could die, 100 people could die, and that risk has always been the root of my caution. When you get in these situations, there's 1,000 different ways this stuff can fall apart. Mark Halperin, 30 seconds.
100%. And the rejoinder, as you know, and which you've also given voice to, is the status quo ain't great. We have a country vowing to destroy Israel, a country vowing to do harm to the United States. And this is an opportunity the president's taking. It might not work out well, and I know full well the president went into it asking questions about and knowing full well all the things that could go wrong, and still decided it was worth it. And the American people are going to continue to debate, no matter what happens, whether it was the right choice or not. And that's as it should be in a democracy of robust freedom.
Mark, open invite if you want to keep going. We have over 100,000 concurrence right now. So we'll be back in about 10 seconds. Everybody email me, freedom@charliekirk.com. Back in 10 seconds. Let's go through the breaks. Okay, I think we still have Mark Halperin with us, and we also, Mark, open invite. You can stay as long as you like. We have Blake. Blake, how you doing?
Doing great, Charlie.
Okay, what are we hearing and seeing? Well,
so,
I mean,
yeah.
hopefully we're doing great.
Exactly.
So no visual reports or missiles over Kuwait and Bahrain.
Yeah, so we had reports of, sirens going off, scrambling. So that is what preceded the stuff in Qatar, but we haven't seen any video of missiles coming in over there. There are reports of explosions at Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq. There's no footage of that. Al-Assad is in the western desert of Iraq, so it wouldn't be, in Qatar, any random person might see missiles coming in. It's not a big country. It's all right by Doha.
Very civilized.
So we'll be probably waiting for reports to come in.
So, Mark, we have Mark Halperin with us. By the way, I want you guys to email us, freedom@charliekirk.com, as we are monitoring this situation live as it is unfolding in front of us. Coalition of jets, this is breaking news, coalition of jets intercepting Iranian drones over Qatar, Iraq, Saudi, and UAE airspace. So look, can we get the map break up again? Let's get that Middle East map up. So if they're going to Qatar, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and UAE, they are flushing out in many different directions. I want just a quick Middle Eastern geopolitical lesson for those of you that are tuning in. A lot of you are. Iran is very much at odds with the UAE and Saudi Arabia. There's a Sunni Shia split. They just don't like each other. They haven't for quite some time, especially Saudi Arabia and Iran. Airstrikes in Iraq are now being reported. And so the jets, by the way, pray for our service members right now that are in jets intercepting drones, they're intercepting missiles. This seems to be a pretty serious salvo by Iran. Whether it is somewhat performative or theatrical, we will see. We know it's real, but what do I mean by performative and theatrical? There has been a little bit of a wind-up to this. Close the airspace, a little bit of a, hey, we're coming, because does Iran want to see this escalate? Mark, what are your sources telling you? What are you seeing here? And if not, you could go back. I don't mean to throw it to you.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
Okay, we lost Mark for a second here. Blake, what are we seeing?
So there's definitely the belief, the big worry is, if they hit us, are they going to actually try to cause as much damage as they can? Or is it they need to show that they're willing to fight, much like we did, remember this in Trump's first term, where when we took out Soleimani, they shot missiles at us to sort of impress their own domestic political base, but they weren't really attempting to do as much damage as they could. They were not going to all-out war over this. And we might see a similar strategy here. On the other hand, it could also be they're testing it, probing it, seeing what might be vulnerable, or just trying to deplete our stockpile of interceptor missiles.
Yes. Okay, so breaking news. Iran says it has now launched what is called Operation Bakarat al-Fatah against the U.S.-led coalition of the airbase in Al Udeid in Qatar. The IRGC is to release a statement shortly, which means that this is probably coming to a conclusion, to an end. So this is the question, everybody. Is this a real escalation? Does Iran want to escalate this? Or is this kind of a domestic show of political force that they could check the box? Is it a one and done? Do we have Mark Halperin or did we lose him? We lost him. Okay, we lost him. Got it. He's welcome to come back if he'd like. And so initial reports right now show 3 reports of impact at the U.S. base in Al Udeid. This is fog of war stuff, guys. So we have to triple confirm all of this. So there are additional attacks happening right now in Iraq. Can we show the Kuwait? This Kuwait is the most Middle Eastern picture. I'm sorry, this is the most Middle Eastern video ever. It literally shows missiles being intercepted and a bunch of yachts. No, you got to show the Kuwait one I just sent. It's literally a bunch of yachts, and then a bunch of yachts on the bottom part in water, and then a bunch of missiles being intercepted above, and a bunch of Four Seasons luxury condominiums. That is the most Middle Eastern video you'll ever see. Which is
you just need a guy to be going through with an AK-47 that's gold plated or something that he just sprays in the air.
Exactly. President Donald Trump right now has arrived in the Situation Room. Those optics right now, just show it one more time. That is Kuwait. You got missiles being intercepted up top. You got luxury condos in the middle, and you got yachts on the bottom. Welcome to Kuwait, everybody. I think it's Kuwait. By the way, right now, U.S. generals are meeting with President Trump in the Situation Room. We are looking at all of our sources. We have the best sources. I would say outside. We're texting a lot of the stakeholders, those that are not currently in skiffs right now. We're texting, we're getting information in real time. Okay, so Iranian missiles are being intercepted, but it looks as if, unfortunately, there have been 3 successful strikes in bases in Iraq. But we don't know if those are intercepted missiles that maybe made their way through. Are they fragments? Are they direct hits?
And if they hit, did they hit anything with people in it?
Yes. And so, by the way, this why every minute matters. The fact that there was almost an hour and a half or 2 hour heads up means that everybody could have gotten in vehicles and drove off base. They could get planes up in the air. They could get into bunkers. And by the way, the U.S. drew down their presence at a lot of these bases from 10,000 to 5,000. There's been a significant drawdown to try to limit some of the casualties and limit this response. There's no yet indication that Iran is going to close the Strait of Hormuz. That would be a serious escalation, one that would actually also hurt China. So I think that that is probably unlikely that'll happen. We now have footage that we're about to put up that the base being struck. The report is this, quote, "It appears that there have been 3 direct hits on the large American base in Qatar. There are no yet reported casualties at the base as it was evacuated several days ago, but damage has been caused." Pray that remains, everybody. If it's just building damage and it's just equipment damage, remember, President Donald Trump exercised restraint. Again, President has a lot of history and drama with Iran. Do you remember when Iran, they struck down one of American drones?
Yeah, they shot our robot down.
Can we get that clip of Trump being like, "I'm not going to strike Iran and kill 100 Iranians because they just struck down a robot"? And so, by the way, if this response is limited to a few missiles, let's put 357 up. President Donald Trump will be able to declare an unbelievable military victory. We take out a nuclear capability. No Americans die. Okay, so let me just repeat. There are reports of 3 direct hits on U.S. bases in Qatar. No reports of U.S. casualties. No reports of U.S. casualties. The Iranian operation called the Annunciation of Victory. Again, these guys are they're just a bunch of talkers. They got a big mouth in Iran. Launched against U.S. bases in Iraq, Qatar, and Iran is confirming, of course, they're doing it. We know that. So Lindsey Graham is now saying now it's time to end this madness in Iran. He's just calling for absolute regime change. Mr. President, please, I will call you later with this message, but please resist Lindsey Graham, please. If they do not kill an American and they just bomb a bunch of our equipment, take the W. Take the W. You will be able to say you did the most successful military operation in history, taking out a nuclear program with no U.S. troops dies. If that ends up bearing out, we do not know that is true. Blake, can you comment on that? That would be a phenomenal victory.
It would be by far the biggest win for I think, the way Trump sees his own military stuff of, I will act decisively, but without, with a clear objective, without any open-ended commitment. If he's able to even temporarily or significantly set back their nuclear program, let alone destroy it, if he can say, I blew this 20-year threat to smithereens, and all they did was they shot some bottle rockets at us and killed nobody, that is a big win for us.
And we don't want to get that. Americans might be dying right now, so we want to say that with humility. This is big breaking news. The Qatari Ministry of Defense reports that Qatari air defenses intercepted a missile attack aimed at the Ayyued air base. And so, by the way, thank you, Qatar. I know that there's been a lot of anti-Qatari language, and we haven't really gotten into that. But if it's true that Qatari air defenses intercepted a missile, then they might have saved American lives. So you have to. There has to be definitely some moral clarity there. And again, there's a lot of language that, Qatar funds the pro-Hamas crowd. That seems to also be true, but there might be a very complicated actor. The Strait of Hormuz has not been closed down. Any reports that demonstrate that? Really quick, Blake, I'm going to test you. 30 seconds. What is the Strait of Hormuz? What would it mean if they close it?
So 30 the Strait seconds. Of Hormuz. All right. The Persian Gulf is that little body of water that you can see going up to Iraq. And then past that is the Arabian Sea. That's the Indian Ocean. The Strait of Hormuz is the narrow body of water that goes through it. I believe it's named after an island that the Portuguese owned. And that is the narrowest part. So Iran could mine it. They could shoot missiles at it, and ships would not want to go in there because they don't want to get hit. They don't want to sink.
Oil would go up dramatically.
And price would go way up. A huge amount of the world's oil passes through that strait on its way to global markets.
Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. I want to know what you are thinking about all this. We are reading the emails here live on air, freedom@charliekirk.com. We have Alex Marlow that will join the program. We're going to be back in 10 seconds. In the meantime, subscribe to our podcast right now, Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. Be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. Alex Marlow joins us, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. Okay, we want to proceed with a lot of humility and caution. I do want to say, though, that I have a great deal of relief that at least the attacks on Qatar seem to have not killed any Americans. That is the most target-rich of all the targets. It's the biggest base. It's geographically one of the closest. And if it's true that all those were intercepted, that would be a major, major victory. CNN said that 10 missiles were fired into Qatar, 1 into Iraq, and we will now stay live here and analyze in real time. Alex Marlow, what are we seeing? Potentially, Alex Marlow, it looks like President Trump could walk away with one of the most remarkable U.S. foreign policy victories if all continues as it is right now, which would be taking out the nuclear capability while also no U.S. troops potentially being killed. Alex Marlow, again, I put a major asterisk on that.
Yeah, Charlie, what you're talking about with Blake earlier, I don't know if the whole radio audience got that. It's really important about what's happening with Qatar, because this is a point I wanted to make to you today, is that the coalitions here around the world, Trump has brought in a broader coalition on his side and on America's side. America is the alpha here, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I know there's some misconceptions about that, but Trump is playing this perfectly. And one of the things is Qatar was seen as adversarial a few years ago. Now they're seen as largely cooperative, and they want to get closer to us. Look what's happening on the other side with Iran right now. One of Iran's biggest backers, Russia. Russia is trying everything they can not to help them. Why is this? It's because of Trump, and they don't want to cause any more problems with Trump right now. And this is a big deal. So who's going to come in on Iran's behalf, on behalf of this unpopular regime? Probably no one, maybe the Venezuelans, which is, what are they going to do there? It's seriously the thinnest coalition imaginable, which is, I think, why Trump and Israel moved the way they've moved. But the Qatar incident that you've highlighted, it's so crucial because it shows you the broadening coalition in the Middle East for peace and against war, that they think this is the quickest path to a more peaceful region as led by Trump.
Two things. Number one, I'm going to give Aguila a shout out on Telegram. Their reporting has been actually very, very good the last couple of days. And so thank you to Aguila on Telegram. You guys give them a follow. Secondly, Iran is now saying that they fired a missile for every bomb that was dropped on us. This seems very theatrical. Again, I don't want to laugh too much.
Did they really say that?
Yeah, they did. I do not want to laugh because Americans actually might be dead right now. We do not have the full casualty report. But I just want to take a big sigh of relief. It looks like in Qatar, the most target-rich of all the targets, the one that we were worried about the most, because they fired 10 missiles at Qatar and 1 into Iraq. That looks to be no casualties so far. And so we just want to kind of take a deep breath and say, thank you, Lord, for protecting our U.S. troops in Qatar, because that is the biggest U.S. base in the entire region. And so, Alex, what do you make of this? And Alex, I apologize. I might interrupt you at any moment here because there's so much breaking news here. For example, the Iranian National Security Council stated that the missile strike on the American Al Udeid base in Qatar does not pose a threat to the brotherly nation of Qatar, whatever that means. Okay, so, but Alex, is it possible that Iran was just kind of doing international theater here, check the box, kind of show their domestic strength, while not trying to further provoke the American military might? As I say that, Bahrain has just urged all of its citizens to seek immediate shelter. But Alex Marlow, comment on that.
Yeah, they've taken a very aggressive rhetorical approach, and they're obviously trying to fight back with whatever they can, but their missile capabilities are drastically weakened, and they have almost no ability to quickly generate more because Israel has targeted a lot of the sites from where they fire the ballistic missiles, but also no nation wants to come in on their behalf because they're in a losing proposition. Now, what does the end game look like? What does the full loss look like? Is there regime change? Those are all really compelling and mysterious questions at the moment, Charlie. But overall, we know Iran is losing, and no one wants to come in on their behalf. Who would want to come in contra Donald Trump from the position of strength that he is? Not to mention, Israel has been very impressive in the war in terms of their ability to take out military targets. And to come in on Iran's behalf is not going to happen. So I think they're desperately trying to get some level of momentum as fast as they can to maybe recruit some allies to their side. But it's probably not going to work, and because almost everything is getting the retaliatory strikes are just so devastating to them at every turn.
Qatar has officially said no casualties and no damage from the attack. Praise the Lord. That's a big deal. That was the biggest threat of them all. But right now, it's not over. Bahrain the sirens are going off in Bahrain right now, and they urge all citizens to seek immediate shelter. That is happening in Bahrain right now. Iran's top security council tells Qatar its attack poses no threat to its friendly and brotherly neighbors. So basically, Iran is like, hey, Qatar, we're your friend. So we're learning a lot about Qatar in the midst of all this. So let's just kind of put a little bit of a, we'll
very
talk about that.
educational. We're all quick studies now. Yeah, all of us immediate.
We're all very quick studies here. But Bahrain, we got to keep all eyes on Bahrain right now. All eyes on Bahrain. By the way, before, Blake, I want to throw to you for a second. Everybody, I want to hear from you, freedom@charliekirk.com. That is freedom@charliekirk.com. Iran has filed 10 missiles at Qatar, 1 at Iraq, and it looks like something is happening towards Bahrain. I'm by no means a military expert, but here's my rule when it comes to military things, is if you as an American citizen can't understand it, then they have not done a good enough job explaining it, because that stuff's actually not as complicated. Would you agree, Blake? Like, oh, this is just for military minds. Actually, no, you're a U.S. citizen. You deserve a right to understand it. You're a stakeholder. This is your government. U.S. base in Qatar reports no casualties and minimal damage. Praise God. And now all eyes are on the Bahrain attack. The Iranian state TV is now trying to pound the chest. They're trying to get, oh, look at us. We responded back to all these Americans. Missiles launched at Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait. Can we contrast this for a second, Blake, with what they did with Israel? Israel, they actually wanted to kill Jews. That was not performative. That was real. That was aggressive. With America, it looks as if it's a little bit of a different of a calculation. Explain.
Yeah, so first of all, they shot more missiles because Israel has the Iron Dome. They can shoot quite a few incoming projectiles down. So a lot of them got shot down, but some got through. They've hit a decent number of buildings. I think the total death toll is 24. And really, it could be higher, except Israel has prepared so much for this. They have bunkers for everybody. They're very well drilled on how to avoid them. So you'd almost certainly have far more deaths if they were any less prepared. There have been major strikes in Tel Aviv with really big missiles. So that they were clearly actually going for doing some damage.
Yes.
With this, if we're stuck at 11 or 12 missiles...
largely intercepted,
or the ones that landed did no damage and may not even have been seriously intending to do damage, and they're already, proclaiming victory and saying, Qatar, we're still buds with you, don't worry about it. That is a very positive sign. we're
Guys,
not
can
out
I
of
add
the
something?
woods.
Yeah, please, Alex, chime in really quick about a minute.
Yeah, I was thinking about something while you guys were talking.
Alex, yes.
We got how many days has it been since Trump's attack? It's been 2 days. This is all they got, 2 days, and this is it.
Well, we don't want to overly taunt.
It's not the show of force.
No, I know. I agree. Again, we don't know.
I get it. I'm just. It's an observation. You take it in a vacuum, Charlie.
No, I agree. In Iraq, reports are being made of a drone attack against American air bases. Guys, drones are much easier to shoot down than ballistic missiles, just so we are clear, okay? Drones do not, right, Blake? I mean, drones do not move at hypersonic speeds. Now, drones should not be minimalized, but we have technology to shoot down drones. Let's just be very clear. Okay, email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. Again, there will be a time for a victory lap. I just want to say, if President Trump is able to come out of this with no U.S. troops, with a performative response, U.S. troops died, a performative response with incredible display of U.S. military might against Fordo and against Isfahan, against Natanz, this could be one of the most clear military victories that we've seen in quite some time. And by the way, keeping the entire Middle East coalition together. That would be another win for the MAGA doctrine. I literally wrote the book, The MAGA Doctrine, a couple years ago. And keeping all these international and regional partners together. And we don't know what kind of drones these are, but it just seems right now, the indication so far is that this has been somewhat of a theatrical response on behalf of Iran. I'm not saying ballistic missiles aren't real, but they kind of gave us a 2 to 3 hour heads up, which, by the way, shows that President Trump is winning here, and they fear America, and they want America to kind of back off, and everybody's kind of seeking an off-ramp here. Right now, breaking news, U.S. aircraft takes off from the Saudi Arabia air base. So we have air bases in Saudi Arabia. We got air bases in Qatar. We got air bases all over the place. And God bless our service members right now. What they're doing is they're flying at, boy, how fast they fly? 800, 900 miles an hour? I mean, they fly almost the speed of sound, right?
That's over the speed of sound. They can break.
What is speed of sound? 700?
I can't remember the exact amount, but about 700.
But I mean, they're flying super fast across the Gulf, trying to find these missiles, shoot disruptors, interrupters, and so far, they've been doing a phenomenal job. So God bless our troops that are doing this right now. And President Donald Trump right now is in the Situation Room. In front of him is potentially a major U.S. victory. No regime change, no boots on the ground. You took out the nuclear program. You took out the nuclear capability, I should say. It's actually a big difference. And you might be able to say no U.S. troops died in response. What a triumph that President Trump very well might have been able to engineer. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. Subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. Iran is just running their mouth. They said, we just launched a very devastating and powerful missile attack. But we should never trust anything the Iranian social media ever says again. We'll be back in about 10 seconds. Okay, we're back, everybody. So we got Alex Marlow with us. Iran is kind of saying this was devastating and powerful. Well, it was devastating what President Trump did to you, just for the record. I want to just ask a question here really quick, Alex. If we are able to get this to a settlement, declare victory, which is legitimate, will this go a long way to making sure the MAGA coalition stays unified? Alex Marlow.
Yeah, I think the timing of it for the MAGA coalition, Charlie, it's high stakes. I know you've been hyper conscious of this, and it's really wise to be this way. This is one where if this is a clear, decisive victory and it takes place in the next week or two, which I think that is exactly where we're on track. It could go wrong at any minute. You've been cautious about that. That's correct. But if this happens in the next week or two, a clear, decisive victory where you've got a situation where Netanyahu's been a fixture of public life for 30 years, and his main goal has been to protect Israel from Iran. That's been his stated mission. And Iran has done numerous devastating things to America, including shooting at our Navy fighters with the Houthis, et cetera, funding all sorts of terror proxies all around the world and pursuing the destruction of America. They would love to do it. If Trump could devastate their nuclear facilities the way he's done, apparently,
yes,
from what we've been told, and he can pull out of the region without American casualties, without any further wars, without any ground troops going in, I think he could reassure the entire MAGA base that this is the way forward. This is the peace through strength approach. This is what America First is all about. There are many places where things can get fractured along the way. But if that happens clearly and decisively, I think he's going to start restoring trust in a lot of Americans who do not trust our leadership and our government. And it could be a huge moment for the future of the country.
Very quick, Blake, just from looks like some of the jets are now returning. It seems as if the attack is simmering down. There could have been one impact in Iraq al-Assad Air Base, so we want to have a caveat on this. We don't know. Americans could have died, and so we don't want to have a preemptive celebration. But what are we reading and seeing, Blake? Very quick.
I mean, it's looking like now we're seeing reports that, if anything, stakes are going down. Like they're not freaking out as much. They're dialing back their concern. We haven't had new reports of additional missiles coming in, and I feel like if this was going to get worse, it's basically early in the evening there. So in theory, this could be the opening wave, and you could see more stuff launched over the course of the night. They have many hours to do that before daylight arrives, but so far it seems it might really just be one volley of missiles, declare victory, go home.
I want to say thank you to Real America's Voice for blowing through the brakes. You guys should download the Real America's Voice app. We are live every single day. So is Bannon and Posobiec. So download the Real America's Voice app for our show every single day. Okay, so let me just kind of go to some of these reports here. It seems like there was a lot of talk from Iran. This seems to be largely a theatrical show. A lot of the parties, it seems like, knew the plot and the outcome in advance, and this was permitted largely to allow Iranians as a way to save face. So, Alex, do we still have you here? Alex, we have you?
Yeah. I just hit mute. I'm here. I'm sorry.
If that ends up being true and no Americans being killed, it is now an incredible victory. And we shouldn't have any focus on regime change or any of that, but we can now reconfigure our intent on the American homeland, on deportations, on the border. Again, we're looking at this right now. Israeli jets are now moving in to strike Iran. Okay, that's a whole separate dynamic here. But
right.
Is it possible the American chapter of this might actually be closed?
Yeah, it's possible. And I think the most likely and most favorable scenario, again, there's so many caveats I can add to this, but you guys will see where I'm going with this. Israel will continue to pummel Iran for the next week or two, continue to devastate them because they do not have any aerial defense right now, and Israel is going to take advantage. America should do nothing else. Both sides have said they want this war to end quickly, and we cannot be involved in any sort of regime change because regime change will go on and on and on. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to try to tempt us into some sort of a regime change war.
Totally.
That is not our fight. That is not our fight. That's not our battle. We cannot do it. We cannot engage in it because we don't know.
Stay right there.
Next great awakening is here. Welcome back to the Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Sorry, Alex, we cut you off there. But Alex, I'll throw it back to you in a second.
No problem.
Let me just read here. Qatar's defense systems intercepted 9 out of 10 missiles launched by Iran, with 1 missile landing in an open area. And so it looks like all the missiles to Qatar, 9 out of 10 were intercepted. This is what happens when you kind of give a little bit of like an hour to 2 hour, hey, we're going to attack. We're going to attack. Alex, what does this say for the supreme leader? It seems that the head of Iran did not want to see an escalation with America. They truly fear President Trump, as they should. So President Trump's words now have real meaning for what he did in Fordo. Could it be so that President Trump just set an entire message to the rest of the world that you better listen when I talk?
Yeah, I think, Charlie, you and I called this last week on your show. We talked about this exact thing, is that Trump's word matters. It always has. And he's always said that they are not going to be allowed to have nuclear capabilities. He's been saying this for a decade and a half. So obviously, if they're going to continue to flaunt him when he's in a position of deep power, and they've been very much weakened by Israeli strikes over the last few weeks, of course, this was going to be something that Trump was going to do. He said he was going to wait 2 weeks, typical unpredictable Trump fashion. He only waited a couple days, dropped some devastating attacks, and now he's out. And the American public is on the side of aerial defense. They're not on the side of regime change. And my prediction is Trump will stick with that.
Alex, stay right there. Blake, I'm going to throw it to you for a second. We do not know the extent of the attack at Iraq. The Bahrain sirens are still going off, so there could be an attack on Bahrain. Let's get the map back up here. Bahrain has closed its airspace, so we are now seeing potentially another volley towards Bahrain. Bahrain is a very small country. This map is not helpful at all, but you see Saudi Arabia
it's
there.
super tiny.
Yes, but
Saudi
there's two
Arabia-
clusters. The two clusters on the eastern part of Saudi Arabia. The southernmost one is the Qatari. The northern one is Bahrain.
Exactly. It's literally like the icons they're using on that are like larger than Bahrain. It's a tiny island. I doubt it's that much larger even than like.
So I'm curious. Some people are emailing us saying, Charlie, even though they didn't kill any Americans, they want to see a huge response from America. Is that your position? freedom@charliekirk.com. Should we now escalate this if no Americans die? I don't know if that's my position. I think President Trump could take a massive victory here, which is that we bombed them hard, no Americans died, and that's it. No regime change, no boots on the ground. By the way, this was factored in. This was a expected, response. By the way, we know that Iran probably wanted an exit ramp. Take the win. That's my position. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. 3 different media outlets are now reporting no injuries. Not even injury, let alone a death. Praise the Lord. Again, this is the MAGA doctrine. This is the Trump doctrine. Force, exert the force, use it, be unapologetic in the use of it. Limited, decisive, aggressive, violent, prudent action. Blake, let's kind of go through the dynamics here. Why would we not respond even though that they sent missiles towards us and no one died? Why should we take the win here?
Well, because when you think about like what are we hoping to get done here? The reason we got involved was hopefully to do as much damage to Iran's nuclear program as possible, because that was what Trump's goal was. He says Iran will not get a nuclear weapon. And when we think, what are the bad outcomes that could happen here? The bad outcome is we get sucked into some sort of cycle of constant strike and retaliation and strike back. It would be a huge failure case if we end up with boots on the ground. And how do you end up in a situation with boots on the ground, even if you say you don't? If you're constantly having these strikes go back and forth. If, we need to get back at them for something they did. And if this strike did in fact have no casualties, we kind of have the perfect excuse to go, all right, they made their response and it was totally impotent. We clearly don't even need to worry about what they have to shoot at us other than their nuclear program, which we just hit and did a bunch of damage to. It perfectly works out for us to be able to say, we win, we take our ball, we go home.
No impacts at the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. And so that is from every source that we have as well. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast. We're going to be doing this analysis all the time on every possible major breaking news issue. Joining us right now is Mike Cernovich. We only have a minute remaining in this segment, but we're going to take Mike right through the break. Mike, great to see you. Mike, I want to talk about the politics of what's happening with all this, but potentially it looks like this could be a end of this chapter, God willing. What do you think, Mike Cernovich?
Well, there is the risk of escalation. That's of course the problem. Is the table's being set for massive attacks that can be blamed on Iran. The table is being set for Iran to retaliate, although I don't think that they're going to. I think that the leadership in Iran is way too afraid of the people uprising. But the optics of the timing of the attack, I think, are the biggest concern I have. I don't think that we're anywhere near World War III, and that's all kind of panic and fear mongering by the usual suspects. But the way this went down looks really bad, and it looks weak. In fact, to a lot of people who turned out to vote for the first time this past election in 2024.
Stay right there. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. Subscribe to our podcast. We'll be right back in 10 seconds. Okay, everybody, email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. We are looking at this live. So right now, Iran coordinated attacks on the U.S. airbase in Qatar with Qatari officials, providing advance notice to minimize casualties. That is the New York Times. And so Iran has responded, and they responded with 11 ballistic missiles in the Mideast. No American troops seem to have died so far, God willing. New York Times is reporting, though, that Iran coordinated the American airbase attack, kind of just be theatrical and performative. Iran appears to coordinate a response as to what not drag the United States more directly into the fight. What does that mean then, Blake?
I mean, it almost makes this sound like pro wrestling or something. Like, you know, if you ever watch it, they have the whole, like, you know, throw the punch, but the guy's ready for it and, like, pulls his head back. It's like, oh, we're going to strike at you guys to show we're serious, but we're going to announce it in advance. You're going to see everything coming, and it's going to be aimed really badly. And yeah, then nobody dies. That is, if this is where we're able to get an off-ramp, it is a gigantic win for the United States, and I suppose a gigantic win for President Trump's judgment.
Yeah, and if we are able to navigate it, and if we're able to kind of go through it.
Big if.
Yes. So Mike, we're going to continue with Mike Cernovich here. So Mike, Iran has just launched 11 ballistic missiles. 10 of the, basically all intercepted. It looks like no U.S. troops died in response. Iran seems to try to just want to lower the temperature here. Iran's top security body says that they dropped as many bombs that the U.S. had used in the attack on the Iranian nuclear facilities. This kind of seems very theatrical and performative. It's a big if, but if then we are able to get to a closure of the chapter here in the American involvement here, what would that mean? And should America strike back now that Iran hit some of our bases?
Yeah, there are two issues going on. There's one, the World War III fear-mongering, which I always said was kind of silly. And when Trump had killed Soleimani, I actually had supported that at the time. And people are saying, well, how can you support the Soleimani show for us versus this? The issue that concerns me is 2024 was a popular vote win against all odds. It was a Maha coalition. It was a bunch of libertarians who sometimes can be a little bit silly, I'll be the first to admit. It was a lot of younger men under 30 who were not politically engaged at all before the election. Everybody kind of turns out, and the timing of all of this looks really bad, and it actually made Trump look weak, especially in men under 30. The circles that I read and keep tabs on due to my other business interests and other things I have going on have been about 90% against what Trump did. So the issue is that let's say Trump had accomplished a domestic agenda. It's a year from now. Economy's good. Mass deportations have happened. And Trump out of the blue decided that he wanted to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities. I would not have had a problem with that. In fact, I might have thought, as in the case of the Soleimani thing, I might have thought that that was a good reminder to the rest of the world. But the way this went down, and it looked like Trump was trying to do a deal with Iran. Witkoff was being bashed as an agent of Qatar. A number of people who were against massive regime change wars were falsely accused of leaking people. They're getting fired. There's all these attacks and snipes happening against American first people. And then next thing you know, that looks like there's a deal. Then Israel starts bombing Iran.
So just, I got to interrupt you. Got it. So, but Trump is saying no intention of retaliation against Iran after its failed retaliation attempt. And so just let's just kind of look at it right now. If then this is the end of that chapter, is it possible then to keep the coalition together, bring everybody back, if now the United States will not respond to Iran?
For us, for high information voters, nothing has happened that I find particularly interesting or distressing. The issue is just the new coalition, the people who hadn't voted for before, who aren't high information voters, and they just look at the timing of how things went down, and they're forming bad conclusions about Trump. That's the issue that I'm concerned with. This World War III stuff I thought was silly. The mullahs are going to do what? Try to wage war against America when their own people want to rise up against them? They don't care about anything like that. They're like the Hamas leadership in Qatar. They just want to have the money and
let me play devil's advocate.
That, I think, is
so
not interesting.
And I hear what you're saying, but if the president is able to say, "Hey, we took out nukes, and then not a single U.S. troop died," isn't that a positive telling of what was kind of trending in the wrong direction online this weekend? Do you think that narrative could stick far better than where we were maybe 36 hours ago?
Not to a large segment of first-time voters. No, that's like, again, the concern is to us, again, to people who follow politics closely, none of this is particularly surprising or even concerning. I'm not worried about World War III. The issue is that the way it looks to people who supported Trump for the first time, who are not politically engaged people. And I don't think it makes Trump look good. I don't think it makes him look strong. I don't think it makes us look good. I think it's the opposite. I think Trump was forced into it.
1 second. Got it.
We will not comply. You're listening to the sound of freedom. It's the Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, do we have Alex Marlow with us? Okay, I want to get to Alex Marlow here. Email us freedom@charliekirk.com. And Mike Cernovich brings up a good point. There's going to have to be work to be done with some of the people online that seem to be a little bit fired up. But honestly, this is a great story to tell. Are you kidding me? That you strike Iran, there was risk involved, no U.S. troops die in response, and end of story. This is a major victory. That's the story to tell. Just to be clear, though, U.S. officials are now saying, the U.S. officials are now saying that Iran, I'm trying to find this here. U.S. officials are now saying that this was largely symbolic. Trump has no intention of retaliation against Iran after its failed retaliation attempt. Alex Marlow, if that's true, is this not a very powerful narrative to be able to present to the American people that, look, there was risk involved, but there ended up being no casualties and no death to American troops?
Yeah, I think that what we've seen here is Trump basically executing a plan that is very straightforward. He's a man of his word, and Iran has not shown any willingness to be cooperative in the slightest. And I think that, it's just not true. The facts are on Trump's side, that he was not manipulated into this. I know there's a perception online that Israel somehow coaxed Trump into war. Israel was freaking out that Trump could throw them under the bus. We, of course, have a lot of sources in Israel, and there's a lot of people who are deeply concerned that Trump is not a fan of Netanyahu, does not want to fight wars on his behalf. But Iran went right after Trump by continuing to enrich and continuing to fund those proxies, despite him pleading with them, please stop, let's be diplomatic, and they would not do it. And this fits very clearly with Trump's narrative of taking out Baghdadi. You remember, Charlie, with all those beautiful dogs going through the wall. They could have gone through the door. They went through the wall. All that great stuff with him. Soleimani, the taking out the Wagner troops in Syria, proactively arming Ukraine, cutting out Nord Stream 2 to affect the Russians. Trump has been highly aggressive when people are not cooperative with him, and then he does a one-off move, maybe 2 or 3 moves at the most, and then he backs off. He's a peacetime president, but he understands being unpredictable is the quickest way to peace. If he stops here where he's at now, that will be the narrative, and it will be a winning narrative over time.
Yeah, and Alex, let's just kind of reiterate this point, though. Can you address some of Mike Cernovich's contentions that, hey, for low propensity voters, they don't like the foreign intervention, all this.
Yes.
Do you think the way that this is concluding could maybe remedy some of that?
Yeah, it has to. And Mike is 100% correct on that we need to be deeply cautious of every political coalition in this country is tenuous. And it is very important that when you're in charge and you have to do stuff, there's nothing that's 100-0 issue. So every time Trump makes a move, there's always a risk that some of the base, some of the movement is not going to understand it. It's imperative on the messengers and on Trump himself and on his administration to make that case to the public in an effective way. And I trust these guys to do it. But there are a lot of people who are new to the movement who do not understand why some of us like Israel so much and understand that deep history. And they don't want to feel like Trump got manipulated into war. I know for a fact that's not why Trump did this, but that is on the people who want to see this movement to be strong, to make that case to the people who are skeptical of everything, Charlie. They're skeptical of everything for good reason. After all the COVID stuff and after all the lying, after the 2020 election, people are skeptical of the government, and it is imperative upon us to make that case to them.
Really quick. Okay, so Mike, in closing here, Mike Cernovich, what then does the Trump administration need to do domestically to pitch a perfect game, Epstein files, border, to be able to keep this coalition together? Let's just kind of dismiss the whole Iran thing. I think this is going to end up being a narrative win for him. But what is the perfect game that this administration now has to pitch on the domestic side? Mike Cernovich.
Yeah, there's no more excuses, because obviously Trump will act on foreign policy when he's pushed. Okay, great, fine, cool. We always knew a lot of these people were going to get what they wanted with Iran, and I never really cared about that. But the Maha stuff, I feel like the Maha people have been taken for granted. I'd actually talked to people in the White House and said, you guys need to roll out the red carpet for the Maha moms, and who's doing that, who's responsible for that. That's so important. I think it's still being overlooked. The Epstein files, people don't have the appetite anymore to hear that we don't have it, we can't find it. The pipe bomb, J6 pipe bomb, they have to really start rolling out a lot of domestic wins. And then sure, today's just a blip on the radar. People will get over it quick. But there is now no more excuse for why things aren't happening or why things are taking too long. People are just done with that.
Mike, we're going to have you back on for a longer conversation about this, but we have to have 10 million deportations. We got to get Epstein files out. We need to have the big, beautiful bill. We need spending cuts. We got to pitch a perfect game to keep this low prop coalition together. Mike Cernovich, thank you so much. We have Alex Marlow with us and Blake. Blake, do you have a comment here on kind of news that we're seeing?
Well, so, I mean, there's not much news right now. One of the funny things about this is just you get war has like long lulls in it, and then you just have these shows where you react. For now, nothing new is happening on the strikes front. This may be the end of things. That could always change at any time. I suppose a big open question is what will happen if we get this off-ramp to get out of things, but if just the war continues, if Israel keeps bombing Iran, Iran keeps shooting missiles back at Israel, will that cause any pressure for us to get involved again at any point? Or are we able to stand aside with just the role we've played so far?
So there are explosions in Tehran right now, which is likely Israeli jets. And so Israel and Iran are going to keep on going back at it, but this is probably and likely a closure to the American involvement here. And by the way, don't take my word for it. Oil prices are going down. Oil prices are plummeting right now because the markets, they're like, okay, we know what this is. This was theatrical. This was performative. This was kind of check the box. And President Donald Trump is able to act in a decisive way. You don't have to agree with it, but I'm going to ask the question though. Okay, if no U.S. troops die, and this is the end of the chapter, hasn't he yet again earned your trust on this stuff? Syria, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, American troops have not died in these situations. Oil is collapsing right now, and air defenses are activated over Tehran. That is not American jets. From our knowledge, our understanding, U.S. officials are saying that was a failed response. We don't plan a response. So it is conceivable then, Alex, that we can say that this chapter is closed. Is that right?
Yeah, I think we're hovering around something really important here. Is that this needs to end. The war needs to end. It needs to come to a close. We need to not be involved in regime change. And then, as Mike said, go back and get that domestic agenda going. We had 700 illegal immigration arrests yesterday, and we barely have time to talk about it. I mean, that's stuff I want to talk about. I want to get back to that agenda. I want those Maha moms reached out to. It is the Epstein files are not gonna. No one's gonna be happy about that stuff, and that continues to erode the trust in the people, the normal people, the new people in Trump's coalition. And those people need to be focused on, starting with the immigration agenda, getting those tax cuts going, all the things that Trump had promised. That needs to get done next in order to solidify that he's a man of his word, which I think he is. So I'm very optimistic today.
And Blake, the Iranian response being theatrical is very good for us, especially if we want, like they gave us an off-ramp. And it looks like President Trump is going to take it. It's conceivable that a week from now we're going to be all back to deportation talk.
Yeah, that's one of the great things. If we get the successful off-ramp, this just becomes, I mean, how many details do you remember about the Soleimani thing? How many details do you remember about the Iran drone crisis? Can you remember the month either of those things happened? Probably at this point, some of us could, but I bet most people, they couldn't tell you the exact number of, war crises we had with Iran in the first Trump term or when they happened. And I think the biggest win for Trump would be if in a year from now, people can't even quite remember exactly when this happened.
President Donald Trump, this is breaking news from Axios, his administration was aware of the Iranian attack in advance. So it's pretty amazing. So, all right, email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to our podcast. Alex Marlow, what else are you seeing and hearing?
Yeah, I think that, Charlie, you're talking about the right stuff. The urgency to end this thing and to move on is the right thing, but it is incredible display of weakness by Iran that this was all they could summon after 2 days, and it shows you that they're deeply vulnerable. And I'm not rooting for or against regime change there, but what I am rooting for is for America not to be a part of it, and Israel has to, they've said they've wanted the war to end as well. They can keep bombing for another week or so, and then after that, wind this thing down and start focus on those deportations and the rest of the domestic agenda. If that happens, Trump is going to look like just a historic figure with historic wisdom. He continues to play this thing right, and I continue to stay optimistic.
I'm trying to find one thing here, but Blake, what does this then mean for the broader foreign policy project, China, Ukraine, Russia? Does this have other implications?
Well, if we get out of it, I think it's probably mostly positive. I think our adversaries, if they had a hope, what could happen to America, they would be thinking, oh, could America get into another conflict that will deplete them and distract them. I imagine Russia would love it if we got in an Iranian quagmire, because that would probably mean the end to any significant support to Ukraine. China might see, oh, this is going to slow down their pivot to Asia. Maybe that's our chance to go for Taiwan. If we get out of this quickly, I think that might make them think, well, one, they're not distracted, and two, we saw U.S. military hardware on display. It seems to be working properly. It seems any talk about America's armed forces being, a paper tiger might be overblown, and that could assist us in a lot of our international relations. And also, if we're able to successfully kind of put Iran in a corner, that can definitely improve the relationships we've been building in the Middle East. I think.
Can I chime in on that?
Yes,
Charlie,
please.
because I was thinking about what you guys were talking about earlier about the Strait of Hormuz and how that's not shut down yet. And I was thinking if Iran really thought they were in a position of strength, it would have been shut down by now. But I know that there's people in the area who are more aligned with them who are saying, absolutely not, do not shut this down. You can't do it, or else we're going to throw you under the bus too. So it just speaks to the vulnerability that they have right now. And I think that is another sign that Trump is acting very prudently here by doing something. Don't do too much. No ground troops at all. I know Bannon's warned about the ground troops. He's right to warn people about it. But overall, it feels like we're in very strong footing at the moment.
Yes, and sorry, I was just double checking right now. So it looks as if the attack is over. U.S. official has told Fox News that no American soldiers were killed or injured in the Iranian attack. Praise the Lord. That's huge, everybody.
Beautiful.
That's praise the Lord. It is really big. So the American official says, quote, the U.S. is not expected to respond to Iran's failed attack. And so the U.S. official, we'll see what happens. And we need to double and triple confirm that. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to our podcast. Iran is going to... okay. I misread that. Got it. What do we have, guys? Z Factor. Let's go to Z Factor right now. I think we all know one person who, when their head hits the pillow at night, they're out, and I know we're all very jealous. Let me tell you about Z Factor from Relief Factor. Give Z Factor a try. You can check it out right now at relieffactor.com. You can save 46% on your first order, only $19.95. So give Z Factor a try. Call 1-800-4RELIEF. That is 1-800-4RELIEF, or visit relieffactor.com. Relax your mind and fall asleep quicker and sleep soundly with Relief Factor. That is from Z Factor. Go to relieffactor.com. That is relieffactor.com. Most of us have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. You guys can check out Relief Factor at relieffactor.com. Okay, we have over 70,000 people live on YouTube. I want you guys to email us right now, freedom@charliekirk.com. And do me a favor, take out your phone and subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. Right now, we are the 4th overall podcast out there. So give us a subscription. That is freedom@charliekirk.com, freedom@charliekirk.com. Email us, and you could follow the QR code right now and subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page and download a couple episodes. We're going to be covering this. We're up very late looking at all these sources, original source documents. We're going to firsthand individuals talking about what is happening, the reaction. And it looks, as of right now, according to all of our sources, no U.S. troops died in the Iranian response. Subscribe to our podcast. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to our podcast. Okay, Blake, what are we seeing as far as the reaction online from folks?
The reaction online, what's funny is, this is all so immediate. I'm not even sure if everyone's seen it. They're at work or whatever. But the initial stuff from people who are hyper online, I think, is optimistic. I think there's some gloating. A lot of people at this point are really just in the phase of making fun of Iran. I was messaging you earlier. It's almost like this is the moment where you remember that Iran is a regime founded by college professors. Like, they just talk a big game, kind of inept, kind of incompetent, aren't really good at the real world stuff. And, that's good to the extent that it's true. And I think further reactions will depend greatly on what actually happens. We live in a very, ADD society, so some people are already spiking the football, declaring total victory, declaring everything's worked out exactly as we wanted. We will see what happens. Things change a lot. We'll even have to see one thing we were discussing this morning, we still don't know for sure how much damage was actually done to Iran's nuclear program. Did they get their uranium out? That's still an open question. It could turn out maybe Iran did a minor response because they already know a lot of their nuclear material is fine. And so they just don't want to antagonize the U.S. because they can just get right back to getting that underway again. So I don't think we should overreact to things, but I think the reaction, to the extent it exists, is a mixture of cautious optimism and making fun of Iran.
Okay, I agree with that. Subscribe to our podcast. I think Alex has to. Is Alex still with us? Okay. Email us freedom@charliekirk.com, and please subscribe to our podcast on demand in real time. All of our episodes. We have the best coverage out there. Also, what a great time for us to plug our Student Action Summit. We need to keep this coalition together. We have the largest event of the summer. We have Greg Gutfeld, Pete Hegseth, Christine Elm, Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump Jr., myself. Let's play cut 51, SAS2025.com. Play cut 51.
They said Gen Z would stay silent, that we'd back down, that we'd forget what's worth fighting for. But this generation remembers. We remember truth. We remember freedom. And now, we rise. This is more than a conference. It's a call to action, to reclaim the future, to ignite a movement that cannot be ignored. Student Action Summit 2025, featuring the boldest voices in the fight.
Charlie Kirk, Secretary Pete Hegseth, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Brett Cooper, Secretary Kristi Noem, Riley Gaines, Brandon Tatum, Jack Posobiec, and more. Join thousands of students, future leaders, and freedom fighters. Raise your voice and take action. This is the battleground of ideas. This is the Student Action Summit. The future is ours to build. Register now at SAS2025.com.
That is SAS2025.com, SAS2025.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to our podcast. That is the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. We're here at the Bitcoin.com studio. That is the Bitcoin.com studio. Okay, everybody. So the response seems to be largely theatrical. We now need to double check this. Let's change the Chiron until we get triple confirmation here. But it looks as if, based on all reporting, and we're going to hear from the U.S. officials and the U.S. administration sometime soon, doesn't look like the United States is going to respond. Again, there's a lot of fog of war going on. Could you talk about the fog of war? Where does that phrase come from, Blake?
The fog of war, I think it originally comes from Clausewitz. Have you ever heard of that guy?
No.
Clausewitz was a Prussian, it might even be older than that, but I think it's from him. He was a Prussian military theorist in the 1800s. He wrote a book on war, and it was kind of the first modern, analysis of war that wasn't just old-fashioned, medieval or ancient text. It was a guy in the 1800s. He was German, so of course the book had to be 1,000 pages long. And he would write, and I think he also was the source of kind of the concept of no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So he's in warfare, you design plans, but as soon as you actually get into combat, those plans break down. You have uncertainty about what's unfolding around you. That's the fog of war.
And so, from a diplomatic standpoint, and now a U.S. domestic one, what would you say, Blake, is the lesson or the takeaway if no U.S. troops died?
If no U.S. troops die, I would actually like to caveat, there can be worries about that. A worry that you might have is, if we're able to do this, blow up a lot of Iran's nuclear program, and get out without any casualties, that could make us overconfident that that can be replicated. You might think, oh, well, we can apply the same lessons to this other country and they'll probably not hit back at us either, and you make that mistake. I would like to caveat that that could happen. That said, I think a lesson we could take is President Trump has, at that point, a very clear track record of having good instincts on what he's able to do force-wise without causing things to spiral out of control. So it'd be a strong win for President Trump's personal instincts in that realm. And it's a display that it is in fact possible to do limited war, that we can get America back to this attitude of we can do military ventures with clear objectives rather than open-ended nation building. I think a reason so many of our wars became these nation building fiascos is because there was a mental tendency in America, in Washington, that our interventions had to go that way.
Yes.
That we couldn't just say, we're going to beat up on this country. It was almost, we got too moralizing about our wars, that every war had to be to like rescue an entire country and bring them freedom and democracy. Whereas Trump, because he comes from a more realpolitik school of thought, he thinks, I wage war for America's interests.
Yes.
And even if it'd be great if Iran was free, that is not why America goes to war.
Totally. And it's just, so just so we're clear, third verification now from a U.S. official, no casualties reported in Iran missile attack on U.S. base. Blake, some people in our audience are saying, still, we have to respond with force. Come on, guys, take the win.
Yeah,
I mean, they just did a theatrical response.
A way to think of it.
You think
like,
our enemies are just going to like not do something at least theatrical in response?
Yeah, it's like if you're like, if you have this like annoying neighbor or something and he's doing, I don't know, if he has something really like aggravating on his property and you go over and you like smash it to bits or whatever because it's bad. And then he comes over and he's like, you're big and strong and he's this little twink and he like punches you right in the chest and like it doesn't even hurt you and you're completely unharmed. Do you then like respond by like grabbing him and breaking his arm? No, you laugh at him and you walk away.
I want you guys to email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. Someone says, some people say the chapter is not closed. We should send boots on the ground. Some people are saying that. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. I think that's kind of wild, to be really honest. Oil prices, though, are falling 5% after the Iranian attack on a U.S. military base. The whole world knows what this is. And I fully anticipate President Donald Trump. Here's what President Trump should do, if you want to ask my 2 cents. And we're going to go till the top of the hour. We're going to go 5 more minutes. President Donald Trump should do a primetime evening address tonight with more specificity about what we did, why it was an American interest to strike Iran, why it was not done lightly, the amazing military accomplishment, and how Iran responded and no American troops died, and then say that this, we're going to stay engaged and involved, and if Iran perks up, we will respond even more. But for all intents and purposes, we don't have any further military action. I think that would be a great response. Guys, let's go another couple minutes, like 3 to 4 more minutes. I want to summarize all this. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Be back in about 10 seconds. Okay, everybody, just to recap today. So we started the day kind of talking about the political fallout, and Iranian missiles were launched. 10 of them were launched at U.S. base in Qatar, 1 in Iraq, and no casualties reported. If this ends up being the case with this fast-moving breaking news day, President Donald Trump will have pulled off a phenomenal success, a legendary success, textbook, a masterclass, in a way that none of us could have ever potentially dreamed. We're very worried about escalation, as we should be. These things can still escalate from this point forward. These things can still go to levels that we do not anticipate and that we cannot always predict. But I could tell you right now that President Donald Trump is putting on a foreign policy masterclass. And I believe that President Trump will now exercise restraint. This is how strong nations exercise military power. You don't have to agree with it, but how could you be against the result, though? If the result ends up being a nuclear program that is severely put back and capability that is jeopardized, and no U.S. troops and no foreign war, no regime change, how could you be against the result? So I encourage you to enter into this discussion with a fair amount of honesty and integrity. So email us, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to our podcast right now. We still have well over 60,000 of you on YouTube and all across our separate platforms. I hate to say goodbye to 60,000 people that are watching all at once, but we could probably go a little bit longer on YouTube, right, guys? We can go a little bit longer on YouTube, even though we say goodbye to Rav. So in about a minute and a half, I know we're going to lose the Real America's Voice, and then I'm going to throw it to our great friend Jack Posobiec. So the takeaway for me, and I think for a lot of people, is President Donald Trump has navigated this beautifully. Again, there's still a lot of situational awareness we must have here. There is still a lot of blowback that can still occur. But look, what Iran did here is very simple. Iran is very worried about what an American response would potentially be. 30 seconds, final thoughts, Blake.
I think we talked about why we were worried about this at the outset, the ways it could spiral out of control. So far, it is not spiraling, and I think we would both agree it'd be great for us to seize that opportunity, take the win, say we did what we came here to do, and we're getting out. We are setting a new template for U.S. military action. Limited, restrained, clear objectives, brief. And that's an asset that we have, and we should be grateful for it.
Very good. Everybody, we got to throw off the Real America's Voice in about 10 seconds here. We also want to go through the Super Chats on YouTube. I bet we have plenty of those, as we have well over 62,000 live viewers here on YouTube. So email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Goodbye in Real America's Voice. We're going to keep going through YouTube right now. Can you get to the Super Chats here, Blake?
Yeah, sure. We can read a few of those. So on YouTube, we had Rambo donated $5. He said, "The war machine is back on, and it's crazy. We didn't vote for this." He also says we should invite Dave Smith on. Is he appearing at...
Yeah, no, Dave Smith is coming to Student Action Summit. And honestly, I like Dave Smith a lot. I agree with a lot of things he says. A lot of stuff he says I think is outrageous. Like he says Trump should be impeached and all that. But I would like to ask him, I say, Dave, okay, I know you don't want like a foreign war, but this is not a foreign war. You got to look at things non-ideologically. So I'd be curious what his response is there.
Tommy Boy, he just says thank you. So thank you, Tommy. Donald Lands donated $5 with no comment. Thank you, Donald. Let's see. King Magma Abra, he says, went to my first church service yesterday, was overwhelmed by the joy and caring of the people there. Hope war isn't necessary. Amen to that. As we always say, blessed are the peacemakers. I think we had some others, but they were earlier, so they might have phased out. Oh, here we've got Avertify says, how do you think this display of military might will mentally affect our adversaries across the globe? I think we said that right at the end, that it's going to make them feel more, they're not so confident about America being in decline if we get out of this successfully.
Really quick, I just want to say, guys, we've been giving away hats this weekend. We actually gave away 150 hats this weekend. I'm signing hats right now. If you guys want a gold-plated 47 hat, as we sign right here, just subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast to get in the running. We're going to give away 30 of these. So just email us proof of subscription to our podcast by following the QR code freedom@charliekirk.com. We'd love to send you a free signed hat. Blake.
Jumana Hensley, trauma abuse recovery coach. Praying for you tonight as you do this research. Thank you. God bless and protect you. Thank you, Jumana. Fianchetto Fun for $10 says, the old devils are at it again. It was in quotes. I'm not sure who he's referring to, but hopefully the devils are not at it.
And just so you know, breaking news, Qatari, UAE, Bahraini, and Kuwaiti airspaces are opening back up. So it looks like this is really relaxing.
Wow.
Zero
They're already
US
opening the
service members.
airspace back.
They're already
up. 2 hours.
They're opening the airspace.
That's like O'Hare delays.
No, I know that's
longer
right.
Than that.
Imagine being. By the way, they said the Emirati airlines were delayed. Imagine being in London. You're flying nonstop from London, and they say, "Sorry, everybody, your flight's been delayed because of airstrikes." 2 hours later, okay, we can resume boarding. You can now fly to Dubai. Breaking news from CNN, which is the Trump administration was anticipating Tehran would retaliate after U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend, and the president does not want more military engagement in the region, a senior White House official told CNN today. Quote, we knew they'd retaliate. They had a similar response after Soleimani, the official said. Please continue.
All right, William Gaither, he asks, could this be a small response to intentionally get America off Iran's back while they continue to enrich uranium? Maybe we didn't get it. There
is a lot of concern about that.
Donald Lands, unfortunately, he says worst vote I ever made for Trump. He's upset about this.
Well, but I'm trying to understand that. So, but why? Like, what would the root of that be? Because they just want no foreign involvement whatsoever. I suppose.
I think that maybe they feel, even if it works out, I think maybe they just feel lied to. That
no, I know, but I guess I understand that. But even the first Trump administration, President Trump did many things of this nature, right? So I'm trying to comprehend
I'd
that.
say I would concede this is a bigger risk than the ones we had
without
before.
it, 100%. I totally agree with that. Yes. Okay, keep going.
Jake K, if you had to make a guess, do you think there will be regime change in Iran during the Trump administration?
Say that again.
Do we think there will be regime change sometime in this
I do
administration?
not think. That's a good question. It's hard to predict.
If there is,
only if the people of Persia rise up.
exactly. If they rise up and topple it, that would be great. But I don't think we should be engineering that. And if it were to start, if there were a serious uprising, would we want to be involved or supportive in any way, or do you think that would be a mistake?
I think we support only through moral, vocal, maybe internet means, non-military means, for sure. But arming rebels and stuff, we don't have a good track record here.
Vilongo donated $5 and says, firecrackers to an abandoned U.S. base. Ha, what a godly show of balls. Eye roll. This has happened before. Nothing resulted in World War III. That's what it's looking like. We hope it remains that way. Firecrackers. I like calling them bottle rockets personally. But, I mean, they are more serious weapons than that. It is an impressive display to shoot these down. We should say that. Vinstar Clips donated $5 and says, this isn't over. Kirk, what are your thoughts on this with regard to prophecy? I believe possibly like biblical prophecy.
I'm not going to comment on that. I will say, though, that I have a lot of great friends in that space, James Cadiz and Jack Hibbs. There are a lot of charlatans in that space. You've got to be very careful of trying to use world events to try to confirm your specific prophecy. So pay attention to the good guys in that space, but there's a lot of people that are trying to swindle you, so be very careful.
Jacob Hawley gave $20. Thank you, Jacob. He says, don't doom, guys. Don't be a doomer. I'm a progressive MAGA coalition voter. I know that sounds weird. I am still supporting Trump here. This is a catch-22 issue. I think Trump did the best he could. He is human. Peace and prayers.
I will say Reuters is breaking news. No Iranian attack recorded at any U.S. base other than Qatar.
Yeah, so we had those. Yeah, there were sirens in
Bahrain and Kuwait and
so
Iraq.
Not even Iraq, or
according to Reuters. Again, this is the fog of war stuff. The Dow is up 290 points today.
Real Trump, $10. Charlie, great show. Iran's nuclear program is now emptier than Rosie O'Donnell's plate at a buffet, but hopefully it's not refilled as quickly as Rosie O'Donnell's plate at a buffet.
Other super chats.
We've got a bunch. They're coming in as fast as I can read them.
By the way, also just remember, if you guys, we're going to give away 30 free signed hats. Subscribe to our podcast. You got to subscribe to the Apple Podcast or Spotify, and then email us proof of subscription, freedom@charliekirk.com. Blake.
Couscous Gaming says, Israeli soldier here. Thank you for making everything clear. And
that's what we do. We do make things clear.
And even making Hasbara. Is that
Hasbara, which is the that's a Israeli project on PR.
Okay. It's much love from Israel. And let's see. I'm going to Dubai. This is William. I'm going to Dubai tomorrow for vacation. Should I still go or should I cancel? What is your opinion?
I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah, go for it, man.
I think you're going to be fine.
We'll be all right. Jordan Dealey donates $5. Thank you, Jordan. I think it's tragic that the Iranian people have no information on what is happening except for chest pounding done by the Iranian government. I agree, but I'd say it's also maybe a blessing in that if the Iranian people had more access to how kind of lame this was, it might pressure the government into taking more aggressive action. Whereas since they have more information control, they can get away with having these sort of puny responses, and they can show some explosion, be like, show some AI slop, and be like, look at the American cowards run in fear.
Yes. So you got more super chats?
Like I said, they are coming in as fast as I read them.
Keep going.
Tyler Phillips, $50. Thank you, Tyler. That's very generous. Thanks for everything you do, Charlie. I couldn't imagine how it would be if Harris was in charge. She'd probably still be explaining what Iran is.
No, with a Venn diagram.
Yeah, or maybe with like some Lego blocks
she would say,
or something.
Here is Iran, here's America, and the overlap is Persian food.
I went to a Persian restaurant on Friday night. Did I tell you that?
There is one in Scottsdale. Called
It was
the Persian
literally,
Room.
it was right by, we had that event
yeah,
there.
it was the
and
Persian Room,
I
right?
literally just went on my phone. I'm like, is there anything good in Scottsdale? And the first thing that pops up was Persian Room. And I went there and I had, I already forgot the name of it.
It's
but
actually really
it was
good.
very
It's
nice.
very good food. Here, this is Kamala Harris's Venn diagram on Iran. America, Iran, Persian food. That's what we have in common.
Sophia Myers, $10. Will USA attack Iran back? It looks like for now, no. Thank God.
It looks
Blessed
like no.
are the peacemakers. Saitama, Japan, part of Japan, $20. What are the odds, realistically, of sleeper cells activating in the United States? I would say there's still a risk of that. I know we like the sleeper cell lingo, where that kind of implies a degree of control, but I'd say the biggest hazard is just rogue guy, crazy, a little unbalanced, and this sets him off, and he decides to go shoot up a church, shoot up a mosque, maybe attack a 4th of July celebration. That's what I would be most worried about. I would still say the risk for any of us as an individual is low. You should not feel afraid of celebrating the holidays. If something happens, that's a tragedy, but I wouldn't let it infringe on your ability to live your life.
Do we have that piece of tape, guys, from 2023 at that rally? Yeah, okay, so this is President Donald Trump at like a random rally in Texas saying something he never said before, that after Soleimani, they gave Trump a heads up, and they were like, oh, we have to do some performative bombing. Play cut 369, this is from 2023.
They called us up, and first time I told this story was a week ago. They called us up and they said, listen, we have no choice. We have to hit you because we have our own self-respect. And I understood that. We hit them. They got to do something. We're going to launch 18 missiles at a certain military base that you have. And you remember that night. Interesting night. I was the only one that wasn't nervous because I knew what was going to happen. They told us that don't be concerned. We're going to launch 18 missiles at your military base, but none of them will hit the base. These are very accurate missiles. These are missiles that essentially never miss. They're very reliable, very accurate.
That was basically him recounting what happened back in 2020 when we took out Soleimani. I think we saw chapter 2 today. Blake, let's keep on going through.
Garrett Middleton, $20. Thank you, Garrett. I've supported Trump from the very beginning, and I believe in support for Israel. However, why would Israel start a fight they couldn't finish without our help? It felt like they tied our hands.
Could be. It also could be that they were betting on Trump's involvement, but maybe President Trump was even more restrained than people realized. Maybe they were asking for even more involvement than just bombing of bunker busters.
Yeah, very, very possible. Renee Acosta, $5. Don't keep an eye away from Cuba. Iran has a base there.
Do they?
I'm not sure. That might have been, maybe they sent a ship there. I recall that being a story. Do you remember this? This was a couple of years ago. They sent their ship into the Atlantic, and we had to freak out about that. Rob 221 says, hey, everyone, I'm about to join the Navy Reserves, the Seabees. What percentage chance do you think this administration will deploy us to Iran? Thank you.
Very low to almost none. Zero, basically. President Donald Trump does not want boots on the ground. And Israel is striking Iran right now. So Israel-Iran, that's not over. That is, but it's conceivable that America and Iran are kind of doing a little bit of a, we're done. We're done. By the way, let's see what happens.
Vinstar Clips, $5. Have you heard about the 3 IEDs they found in Arizona within the last week? I feel like that is swept under the rug. Have you heard about this?
No,
I have
what
not.
is this?
So apparently they found 3 IEDs within Arizona. Maybe that's cartel related.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I feel like if I was around, I would strike somewhere besides Arizona first, though I guess it'd be flattering if we were targeted.
Potentially.
No, I don't want to say that. I take that back. Luz Ahava donated $50 with no message. Thank you. Just a gif of a lemon, it appears. Okay. Lemons are tasty. Jake Messina, $5. I just went to the YLS for the YWS for the High School Leadership Summit. It was great. I heard it through my TPUSA chapter that I started. That's excellent. Thank you, and we hope to see you at Student Action or at America Fest.
SAS2025.com, everybody. It's going to be incredible. Keep going, Blake.
Kids Guerrero, $5. No boots on ground, no regime change. take the W. I think that's fair. We don't need boots on the ground.
By the way, I want to just reiterate that. If President Donald Trump takes the victory right now, what a story he'll be able to tell. We took out the nukes, no boots on ground, no U.S. troops killed, incredible military operation, no new wars. I mean, what an amazing victory. And if anyone has a problem with that, I want to know what your problem, but if it ends like that, got in, got out, non-ideological, no nation building, none of that. I did say all along that you got to trust President Trump on this. Okay, keep going. Yes.
Elizabeth Warren, $5, and it's a sad video game controller. I don't know what that means. Zarella 45, $10. Going to see you, Charlie, in South Carolina in August. Hopefully a meet and greet at some point.
Hopefully, that'd be fun.
Luca Aziri, $10. Thank you. I just wanted to say that Azerbaijan stands with Israel 100%. Our people and our government are with you, dear Jewish brothers and sisters.
Incredibly controversial.
Azerbaijan.
Yeah. That's very controversial.
Well,
it is, because they're fighting Armenia.
Yeah, and controversial there, but also interesting because more Azeris live in Iran than live in Azerbaijan.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So, I mean, the Ayatollah is Azeri. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
So that's a whole thing. There's some scenario you can imagine where if Iran goes into civil war, how Azerbaijan feels about it could be very relevant. But one thing at a time. Madison Davidson, $5. Can I send you my resume? I'm a recent college graduate with a business degree.
Sure.
Where
email me your resume, freedom@charliekirk.com.
All right.
Alongside your podcast subscription.
David Chalkin, 30 in some unit I don't recognize. Love from Illinois. Keep speaking your mind. Rican Rug Dealer, $5. My brother is 18 years old in the Navy, and he just got sent to the Middle East on a carrier from Japan. It's probably the Nimitz, I believe, they were sailing over. I don't know if it means anything. I think that was even underway before the strikes, so I think it's precautionary. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but obviously our prayers are with him for continued peace. Samantha Glade, any thoughts on what Russia, China, or North Korea will do in this situation? We've discussed that a bit. I think we're optimistic that if we take the W on this, they will respect American strength more and not see any reason to help escalate this. Andy Gabbs, hey man, any plans to come out to Massachusetts?
Maybe in the fall. Maybe. By the way, we have a huge campus tour coming up in the fall. It's gonna break records. Keep going.
Topher, $5. Peace through strength. Amen. Joe King, £5. The meek shall inherit the earth. As long as that is okay with everyone else? ? I think it only has to be okay with one guy.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Yes. Free men die free, $5. This was entirely avoidable. Not being a military empire encircling Iran with our bases, not striking Iran, not being attached at the hip to Israel. I think that's a big picture view.
Yeah, I mean, I would say everybody under the age of, not everyone, but a lot of people under the age of 30 are still very upset today, which I think that once time passes and proper explanation wins, if it ends the way it is right now, your passions will calm down.
Let's see. Glenn Kelly, $10. Thank you very much, Glenn. Chad Yansu, Charlie, huge fan, $14 in Canadian. Huge fan here. After all your debates throughout the Trump campaign, you made me want to get out there and make my leader and make sure we have leaders who fight for the people. Thank you very much, Chad. Wolf, $100. Thank you very much, Wolf. This is the best W we could have asked for. Charlie, I enjoy your videos, and you have changed my mind on pro-life versus pro-choice.
Wow, that's what it's all about.
I never considered that new DNA meant new life. Thank you. Go Trump.
It's true.
We especially love to hear that.
We are very pro-life on this program, unapologetically.
Trevor Keith, $5. I try not to go in depth on modern politics, but I trust the president's judgment with this. I hope we learn from our past with no regime change. Chris Carty, longtime viewer. I love your content for years. I want our side to have an open exchange of ideas and let the superior argument win. Love from Scotland. MLG, $5. Aren't the actions from the U.S. and Israel the more reason for Iran to plan a nuclear attack in the future? Is it inevitable? I guess would they bring back their nuclear program to avoid being attacked in the future? It's a valid concern. I'm not sure what the intelligence says about that. I guess that's all I can say at this moment. Rain Black 1400 $20. Thank you, Rain. Thank you for keeping us informed of what is going on. Do you know how the rest of the world thinks about this situation? China, North Korea, Russia. We've been hearing that triad of countries several times. Since they asked, China and Russia have both, I think, condemned this, but it's not super forcefully. I think that's actually what's most interesting about this. Even like Saudi Arabia actually condemned the strikes on Iran, but it's almost a pro forma condemnation. Like, okay, gotta get this email in, gotta make sure, turn in your assignment, get the C+ on it. It's that sort of attitude. They're not, you can sort of tell the difference between that and real outrage that will have big diplomatic consequences. I think a lot of the world played wait and see on this, and what they're seeing is not so bad so far.
We'll go a couple more minutes. I want to remind you guys, we're going to give away 30 hats. And by the way, there's still ones left. Email us proof of subscription to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page, freedom@charliekirk.com. We'd love to sign you a signed hat. Daisy will handle the whole thing.
Rohan, £5. My dad lives in Dubai. I was wondering if you think he should have any actions following Iran's recent attacks.
He's fine in the UAE.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Things are going great.
Probably much safer than New York.
Probably safer. Well, New York's not so bad. Probably a lot safer than Chicago, though.
Much safer.
Yeah. Nola's Adventures, ZAR35. I'm not sure what is that. South African Rand, I think it is. You are inspiring all around the world. May the Lord continue to use you powerfully. Thank you very much. Malachi Eaton, love you, Kirk. Saw you at my job at the JW. Wish I said hi and going to buy a hat signed. Keep up the amazing work.
Yeah, you guys can also buy one, by the way. We're selling them also, but that's in the store below the YouTube channel. So, a couple more, Blake, then we got to run.
Alrighty. Timmy, $10. How can the average person stay informed about politics with so much noise and limited time? It feels impossible to keep up.
Very easy. Listen to the Charlie Kirk Show on 1.5 times speed. You will learn all you need to know, and that's why you should subscribe.
2 times speed.
2 times speed is where real masculinity comes in.
Brian Knoll, $5. I don't think this is over until the Supreme Leader and his cabinet he says, until they are still alive. I assume no longer still alive is what he meant. I think we can get out of this without having more blood.
Bella says, I'm 17, and rather than watching TikTok, I choose to learn from you. You've taught me so much and helped me argue against my liberal teachers. It's pretty awesome.
Any more?
No, I think we're good. We got to run, everybody. Reminder, if you guys want to potentially get a hat, email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. If there's any other breaking news, we're going to cut right in and come back into the studio. Thank you guys for supporting us. Thank you for subscribing. What a wild breaking news day that was. But you guys can understand from our perspective that we want America to succeed. We want Western civilization to succeed. If you had skepticism about the involvement in Iran, as it stands right now, you might be relieved. Say a prayer that many of our worst fears may not be materializing. Subscribe to our podcast. That's the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. And email us proof of subscription to potentially get a hat. God bless you guys, and God bless our troops. See you guys tomorrow.